Telling apart the different Romance languages may be a challenge for some people, but in today's video I decided I wanted to dedicate some time to look at the written form of these 8 Romance languages to see the differences and similarities between them. I wanted to especially look at the written form, as it's easier to identify the written form as opposed to the spoken form, and in today's video we're going to be looking at, as I say, the 8 most popular Romance languages, which are going to be Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, Romanian, Latin, Catalan and Galician. I also wanted to just highlight some grammar points right here up on screen right now. These are certain things that I'll be talking about in this video. If you wanted to quickly pause and read what these different grammar points are, most of them just describe different types of accents on top of letters, as that will be the main difference between these languages. But I just wanted to highlight these here in case you were not too sure on what each one were. And also, before we dive into the video, I just want to say this is the first of hopefully a few different videos of this similar kind of style that I want to do. For example, doing the same thing but with Germanic languages, Cornish languages, Asian languages, languages that use a Cyrillic script, etc. So obviously if you have any ideas for videos such as this, you'd like to see me compare different languages of a similar likeness, whether it's similar scripts or similar language families, let me know down in the comment section below. And also, obviously this is the first time of me doing this kind of video where I'm comparing these languages, so if there are things that I miss out, then let me know again down in the comment section below that I can include in future videos like this. And also, before we get into it, obviously these are 8 Romance languages. Romance languages in general, there's so many of them. There are at least 44 Romance languages that are alive today. These are 8 of those 44, and obviously there are more when you count the dead Romance languages as well. So obviously I couldn't compare all 44 alive Romance languages in today's video because that would just make the video way too long and it would make it really difficult for me to do my research. But if there are any Romance languages especially that you'd like to see me do this kind of thing for compared to other Romance languages maybe, let me know down in the comment section. Again, I read all comments, so it'd be great to see what you guys have in terms of input for me doing these kind of videos in the future. Now that I've got all that out of the way, let's get into the first language of this video, which is Spanish, and I'm just going to go over the languages and basically what they include and some other bits like that. So Spanish only has acute accents on the vowels, so it has these vowels up on screen right here, which all have the acute accent. And also from time to time, the Spanish will also use this diaresis U, which only comes after the letter G in words such as pingüino. And there are very few other words that this will pop up in, but there are certainly a few words, but you will see it from time to time, but it's quite rare. Spanish is also very well known for its ñ, which is this letter right here, and also the written Spanish language is very well known for having its inverse question mark and exclamation mark. These two reverse marks are mostly widespread in the Spanish language but are also used in other smaller related languages. The ñ is commonly associated with the Spanish language, and for this list is only one of 2 languages to use the ñ. But there are quite a few languages around the world that still uses the ñ character, such as these languages up on screen right now. A few popular digraphs, but certainly not an extensive list, would be these 5 up on screen right now: the CH, the double L, the double R, the GU and the QU. So you'll see these combinations of letters quite often in Spanish. Some of the more frequently used words that you'll see pop up just in big pieces of text would be words such as de, el, del, los, la, las, uno, unos, unas, y, and other words alike. There are no apostrophized contractions, in other words, such as in English when we have plural and we put an apostrophe before the S, or in French it's quite common to have contractions which uses apostrophes. This does not occur in Spanish. There is no use of the grave accent, which is the acute accent but going in the other direction. It's kind of common to see the double L as a word beginning in Spanish, although this is also quite common in languages such as Catalan and Welsh. Popular word endings in Spanish consist of word endings such as o, a, sion, miento, dath, and more. Angled quotation marks can be used to identify quotation marks in the Spanish language, but this is not exclusively used in Spanish, and sometimes the Spanish can use the what's called the curly Q quotation marks as well, and also dialogue can often be indicated by means of dashes as well. Moving on into Portuguese. Portuguese has the same alphabet base as the basic Latin script, which is what I'm calling the basic 26 letters of the English language. Portuguese makes use of 5 diacritics: the cedilla, the acute accent, the circumflex accent, tilde, and the grave accent. But keeping in mind with the grave accent that rarely will you see the O with the grave accent. And formerly they used to use the E, I and U as a grave accent, but not anymore apparently according to my research. So the only grave accent in Portuguese that you should see in modern day Portuguese would be the A with the grave accent. And formerly the diaresis, which was used on the I and the U. However, these are not used anymore again. So the ones which are former letters I'm not going to be using for the rest of this video, but I thought it would just be worth quickly noting the usage of old letters because it's possible you may still see them depending on what text you're looking at. Popular digraphs, again, not an extensive list, but you will definitely see letter combinations such as CH, LH, NH, RRS. Up on screen you can see some common one-letter words, two-letter words, and three-letter words in Portuguese that you will see quite often in Portuguese texts. Some common endings such as sal, daje, ismo, mente. Most words in their singular form will end in a vowel, L, M, R, or Z. And also words in the plural will just take on the S ending, such as in Spanish or in English. Up next, we're going to be talking about French. Just like Portuguese and Spanish, French is written with the 26 letters of the basic Latin script, with 4 diacritics appearing on vowels, circumflex, the acute, the grave, and the diaresis, and also famously French makes use of the cedilla. There are 2 ligatures in French, which are up on screen right now. However, they are often replaced in modern day French with the unattached version, which will be OE and AE respectively, because ligatures do not appear on the AZERTY keyboard layout, which is used in French-speaking countries. However, a few words are still known in French to keep their ligatures, such as ul, ouf, bouf, and most other words that have these are typically scientific or technical words and borrowed from Latin. One more letter which is used in French is the Y with the diaresis. However, this is literally only used for a few proper names, in other words, names of places or town names or city names or whatever within France. This is very rarely used and it is not used outside of certain proper names. Digraphs you may see in French include AU, AI, EI, OU, or quite popularly a word ending in EZ, AN, EN, IN, ON, UN, CH, GU, SH, and then some trigraphs would be IUL, EAU, EIN, AIN, OIN, and obviously again the list is more extensive than that. Just like with Spanish, the French language can also use the angle quotation marks, but again, just like Spanish, they can also use the curly Q quotation marks. And also dialogue is traditionally introduced by means of dashes, again similarly to Spanish. Popular word endings in French may include AUX, EUX, or OUX. Common short words will be words that you can see up on screen right now. It is very common in French to see apostrophized contractions for common pronouns and particles, i.e. letters such as le, de, and less often se, je, me, ne, se, te, ze. All of these letters have the possibility of having the apostrophe on them, but especially you'll see le and de in French being apostrophized because they are shortened forms of words such as le, la, de, etc. Now moving on into Italian, I had no idea about much of Italian, to be honest, before doing this video, and I discovered that Italian only uses 21 of the 26 base Latin letters. It does not use the J, K, W, X, or Y. These are only used in loan words, such as in a lot of these languages that we'll speak about. If I say that letters are excluded in the language, it means that they will be used potentially only in loan words, but not in the actual language itself. A, I, O, and U can only have grave accents, while the E can have both a grave accent and an acute accent. So actually Italian keeps it quite simple. There are less letters to look out for, and they literally only use the grave accent with the exception of the E with the acute accent, and that is the entirety Italian language covered in terms of the writing. They don't use any other marks on the letters. Literally just these 6 different letters is everything in Italian. 4 popular digraphs you'll see in Italian would be the CH, GN, GLI, SCI. Almost every native word ends in a vowel. However, there are a couple of words up on screen which are the exceptions to this. Common one-letter word, and a common word in general is perché. Words ending in o, a, zione, mento, ta, agio are just some of the popular word endings in Italian. If the word takes a grave accent, it almost always occurs on the last letter of the word, although obviously this isn't always the case. And there's also frequent use of double consonants in Italian, such as the ones that you can see up on screen right now. Moving on into Romanian, we have the same basic 26 letters of the Latin script, with the additional A with the breve accent on top, A with the circumflex, I with the circumflex, S with an S comma, and T with a T comma, and both of these characters are unique to, I believe, just Romanian. Like, they are not used, as far as my research, in any other language in the world. If that is incorrect, then please let me know down in the comment section below. But from my research, these are two letters which are only exclusively used in Romanian, which has this specific comma looking character under the S and T, which are officially known as S, and T, respectively. Two popular digraphs would be CH and GH. Up on screen you can see some common words and also some common word endings that you'll see in Romanian. And also apparently it's common to see double and even triple I's in Romanian, such as these two words up on screen right here. Note that Romanian is sometimes written online with no diacritics, making it harder to identify, and it's worth noting as well that a cedilla is sometimes used on the S and on the T instead of the correct diacritic, which is, as I mentioned, the comma. Next up, we're going to be talking about Latin. Latin actually excludes the J, the U, and the W. Latin makes use of the macron, which is a flat straight line on top of the vowels. This indicates long vowel sounds, and it uses it on all 5 of the vowels. However, these aren't always used and can oftentimes be omitted. Up next, we're going to be talking about Catalan, which uses a basic Latin script again. This one has the addition of the grave A, grave E, and the grave O, the acute E, the acute I, the acute O, and the acute U. It also makes use of the I and the U, which uses the diaresis, and finally we have the C, which uses the cedilla. However, Catalan also uses something called an interpunct, which is a diacritical inner word character. It is only typed between two L's within Catalan, and this is used to indicate when the two L's are part of a different syllable, such as in this word here, which is pronounced cella. Some popular digraphs you may see in Catalan include IG, IX, double L with the interpunct in the middle, the NY, TG, TX, and TZ. It is popular to get syllables and words ending in these endings right here up on screen. The letter Y is only used in combination with NY, which replaces the Spanish ñe, but you may also see the letter Y being used on its own when it comes to loan words. Popular word endings again are up on screen. The word beginnings of double L, which is again common in Spanish and also Welsh. And here up on screen is just a few common words that you may come across when looking at Catalan. And now we're going to be moving on into the final language that we're going to be looking at in this part of the video, which is going to be Galician. Galician sounds are similar to Portuguese, however nasalization is not as common, and this language also lacks the J, K, W, and Y. 6 popular digraphs within Galician include the CH, GU, LL, NH, QU, RR. Vowels only take the acute accent, so the A, E, I, O, and U, all with the acute accent, and Galician is the other language on this list that also uses the ñe. The indefinite article una, the suffix sion, and a heavier usage of the letter X usually will indicate that this is Galician. And some definite articles that are used in Galician are the ones which are up on screen now, which happen to be the same definite articles that are used in Portuguese. And if you wasn't aware, Galician and Portuguese are kind of like sister languages. From my research, I would say that Galician is a mix between Portuguese and Spanish, whereas I would say that Catalan, for example, is a mix between French and Spanish. While obviously both languages have their own unique touch, which makes them their own unique languages, and not just like an accent from any of the other bigger Romance languages. So in this section, I wanted to kind of just break down and look at all of the characters in these 8 different Romance languages, and kind of just see how frequently some of these characters are used and how infrequently they're used in other languages. Obviously, we're just looking between these 8 particular Romance languages. If we were, for example, to look at all 44 plus Romance languages, then probably you're going to see a lot more repetition with these characters, and there probably won't be as many unique characters. But just looking at these 8 main Romance languages, I've got up on screen here how often each character are used, and looking at this, I've decided to highlight the characters which are only used once in any of these languages in red to show that these are unique characters. So for example, if you see the upside down question mark in any of these scripts, then you should be looking at Spanish. or another Romance language that's not included on this list. It's also worth noting that not just within Romance languages, but obviously other languages around the world will use these same characters as well. For example, in Latin we have the macron on the A, E, I, O and U, but these macrons are also used, for example, when you Romanize Japanese. So when you write Japanese in the romanization, you're going to use those same macrons to show the elongated vowels. Or in Portuguese, the nasalized O is used in Estonian, for example. So obviously we're just, again, looking at in between these 8 Romance languages, and assuming that looking at the text you're able to identify that this is a Romance language of some sort, you can then start to pinpoint which Romance language by trying to identify any one of these red highlighted characters, to then say, okay, it must be this language. 7 of these 8 languages have at least one unique character, with the exception being Galician. But otherwise, if you can recognize these characters, then it may be quite easy then for you to identify, for example, Italian from Spanish, because those two are very similar languages. But if you could see the I with the grave accent in Italian, you should be looking at Italian and not Spanish, for example, which does not use the I with the grave accent. Up on screen right now in this section, I wanted to just compare some words, random words that I could just think of in the different languages, and you could just see up on screen for yourself how similar some of these languages can be to each other. For example, we could look at Spanish, Portuguese, Catalan and Galician, which is not surprising at all when you look at a map of where these languages are spoken, which are, if you didn't know, all within the Iberian Peninsula. The words typically get a little bit more foreign when you look at languages such as French, Italian and Romanian. However, you can still take educated guesses as to the links between a lot of these words. French, Italian and Romanian most likely have differences in the language due to the geographical location of these languages as opposed to the languages on the Iberian Peninsula. If you look at the word please, for example, you got Spanish with por favor, we've got Portuguese with por favor as well, Italian with per favore, and you've also got Galician with por favor. The word option right here is identifiable in every single language if you understand how the Romance languages work with taking off the ending and attaching on the particular ending for that language. The left is similar in at least 4 of these languages, izquierda in Spanish, and then you've got the Portuguese, Galician and Catalan, which are very similar as well, whereas the Romanian and Italian look similar in terms of writing. And if you look at the word England, for example, it's pretty much understandable in every language, which probably would be the case if you put in any country there. But I just wanted to put England there to see how many languages in this set of 8 would have Inglaterra or something similar, which most of them actually, pretty much all of them do, apart from Latin and Romanian, which have Anglia, which is also pretty much understandable. But I wanted to give you a little bit more of an understanding of what these languages actually look like, and I decided to use the United Nations Human Rights Article 1 in each of these 8 languages to kind of show you the differences of the languages in at least some kind of a sentence, so you can see words in context and whatnot. And I decided to use this one because this article is fairly short, but it gives enough, in my opinion, to give an idea of what the languages look like and the differences. It may not exclusively show all the points that I've spoken about in this video, but it should give you an idea of what these languages look like. So up on screen, hopefully I've got all 8 in one screen. If not, I'll use 4 in one screen and 4 in another or whatever. I'm not going to read these languages out because I only really have good knowledge on the pronunciation in Spanish and French with very basic knowledge of Portuguese and Italian, and the rest I really don't have much of a clue on. But you can see the differences and similarities. I mean, in my opinion, they all look fairly similar, but obviously they have their own unique touch to it that, again, when you're used to Romance languages, you can kind of just pick up the differences between the different Romance languages. I mean, for example, look at the Spanish word for fraternalmente and then look at every other language and you can see that they're kind of understandable, again, in context, with the exception actually of being Latin. Latin is actually kind of the exception here, but maybe because it's an older language and it's not quite as modern as obviously all the rest on this list, it may just be that obviously it's a more outdated language in that respect. So that's basically going to be it for this video in terms of being able to identify the 8 main Romance languages in terms of the writing and the script themselves. Now obviously it will be easier to identify if you actually understand these languages properly, or at least you have knowledge of at least one of these languages, which at least can set that one apart from all the rest. In my opinion, these Romance languages, they all have their own unique look, but obviously being able to identify different characters in the sentences and different grammatical uses of things such as punctuation marks and whatnot, it can be quite useful to understand this even if you don't know the language itself, to be able to identify this is Italian over Spanish because of this reason, or this is Latin over Romanian because of whatever reason. It's very interesting just to look at these languages and kind of compare. As I say, Galician is kind of a mix between Spanish and Portuguese. Catalan is kind of a mix between Spanish and French. Whereas Romanian is probably the language that's most closely related to Latin that's still alive today, arguably with Italian as well. It's also worth noting something that I should have maybe mentioned earlier about Romanian is that obviously it is a Romance language, but it also does have heavy influence from Slavic languages. And so obviously if you see this language and you can't remember the individual letters of the S with a comma, T with a comma, etc., then obviously Romanian is going to have words which are influenced by Slavic languages, and so if there's a language that looks Romance but also looks very different from the Romance languages, Romanian is probably going to be the language that you're looking at. So Romanian is kind of the most distant in terms of Romance languages, at the same time is one of the closest languages living today, which is related to Latin. You can see this in words such as sunt, which I can see here on the Latin United Nations Human Rights Article 1, and I know for sure that that is a word also used in Romanian. Whether they both translate the same word, I'm not sure, but it's certainly the same spelling of a word in those two languages, and that's just one example of probably many. So as I said at the beginning of this video, please let me know if there's any other kind of like videos like this you'd like to see me do, whether you'd like to see me do one of these in comparing the different Germanic languages or the different Cornish languages or Slavic languages or Indian languages or Asian languages, or, you know, whatever. Like, there's kind of a lot of different ideas similar to this I could do, and it'd be cool to see what you guys would like to see in terms of like this kind of video. And again, if there's something that I missed out and maybe I should have researched more on, let me know in the video as well, in the comment section, even down below, because it would be good to get some kind of feedback as to how this video did in terms of like if you actually enjoyed watching it. I obviously just enjoy looking at different languages and comparing them. I mean, like, I don't know if I'm going to make this into a video yet or not, but I've recently literally made a list of every single word in Polish, for example, that do not contain a vowel, which is, in other words, any letter that isn't a Y, because I know that Y is a vowel, but I excluded that as being a vowel for the purposes of my list. And so I literally picked up a dictionary and I just went through every single page, and I found words which had which excluded the letters A, E, I, O and U, and I was like, that's a word with no vowels, because I only was counting those 5 letters as a vowel for this list. And I listed every single word, every single verb that I could find, and then I started looking on Wikipedia and I started finding the different conjugations and the different declensions of nouns and adverbs and adjectives, etc. And I looked extensively at all of these different words, and I made this big list of about 620 words in Polish, which is still kind of growing because I find words still that aren't on the list, which do not feature A, E, I, O or U, or any of those letters with the markers on, because in Polish they have a few marks as well. Yeah, like sometimes I just like to like kind of compare things, and in that case it was comparing you know, like different words, or just looking at this big list of words in Polish which don't feature vowels, excluding the Y. And so I was able to find words such as this word up on screen, which off the top of my head I can't remember, but I can kind of like read it when I look at it. It's a 15-letter word, and it has like 5 Y's in it, which I know are considered vowels, but, you know, for the purposes of my list I was excluding vowels or Y as a vowel. And so yeah, I like to just sometimes make a list of things. I like to just sometimes like compare languages. So again, I'm quite happy making this kind of video, but it does take a bit longer. Like for me to record right now took me over an hour to record this video, so obviously it takes me a bit longer and the editing is going to be longer, but it's fun for me to do. So let me know if you'd like to see me do this in any other language families or language scripts or whatever. I may have to do like multiple for the same languages, for example Slavic languages and languages which uses the Cyrillic script, which will overlap Russian, Ukrainian and some other languages as well within that within those 2 groups. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much. I will see you in the next one. Until then, have a good day and peace out.